All right, so this is genuinely one of the funniest stories that I've covered over the last couple of weeks. So obviously, RFK Jr. has been running a presidential campaign in the Democratic primary for a while now, and one of my biggest critiques of him is that he wasn't really running to the left of Joe Biden on any of the major issues that I really care about, or that I think a lot of more progressives care about in this country. And it seemed like he was almost more appealing to a conservative audience than a progressive audience. And he just recently announced that he's actually going to be running as an independent candidate, so he's dropping out of the Democratic primary, and he is very quickly realizing that all of these conservative media outlets that he's been going on are no longer his buddies because they can no longer use him as a wedge against Joe Biden in the Democratic primary. And they've seen some recent polling data that shows potentially even RFK could be more damaging if the election ends up being Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and RFK Jr. He could actually take away more votes from Trump than he does from Biden. And so now we have Sean Hannity, one of the most prominent booty lickers of Donald Trump himself, and Sean Hannity is going to absolutely blindside RFK Jr. here. So let's go ahead and watch this.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
I really do appreciate your position on the border. You and I are in agreement. It's interesting because everybody's now trying to analyze, whether if there's a three-way race with you, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden, who would you more likely draw from? So I hope you don't mind, but I did a little research on you. You're pretty liberal. You've called for curbing, logging, oil drilling, fracking. You wanted to eliminate it. You called it a victory for democracy. You want to curb U.S. fossil fuel extraction. Keep it in the ground, you once tweeted. You want a ban on fossil fuel extraction, a ban on fracking. You called the NRA once a terror group. You've supported over the years Democrats, Gore, Kerry, Obama, Hillary. You've praised Bernie Sanders multiple times. You support affirmative action. So why is this party of yours, why didn't they even want to allow you to compete? Because that's as pretty liberal of a record as anybody I know.
You have a litany of talking points from statements I've made over 40 years. Some of them are stale. Some of them I never said. But, what is your question? Why the Democratic Party? Why I'm not running at the Democratic Party?
Why did they kick you out?
I feel like...
by the way, I'm giving you comments that you've made in 2016, 17, 19. Endorsements, we know the years Gore, Kerry, Obama, Hillary, Bernie Sanders. They're all recent quotes. The NRA quote you made about calling them a terror group was 2018. So these are recent positions you've had. That I'm not sure why the Democratic Party wouldn't allow you to compete.
Do you want to talk about my position, Sean?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to read talking points from the Trump campaign?
That's actually a fair point there from RFK, because this is basically the exact line that Donald Trump has been attacking him with recently. And so, it's just amazing, dude. Listen, obviously Sean Hannity is trying to sort of couch his question, and I guess from just a so-called journalist perspective here, right? He's trying to ask this question to be like, well, I don't understand. You're this massive liberal, commie progressive. Why won't the Democratic Party accept you, right? So that's sort of the framing, I guess, for the questions that he's asking there. But really, it's brazenly obvious. The only goal that he has here is to paint RFK Jr. as some sort of a radical Bernie Sanders kind of lefty, because again, after praising him on his platform before, and after conservatives have been hyping up RFK Jr. when it would benefit them to hurt Joe Biden's campaign, now he's basically just listing off things that he's like, no conservative should ever support RFK Jr. because he's this radical liberal or something like that. It's very transparent what Sean Hannity is doing here, but he's still trying to, I guess, pretend as if this is a real interview. So let's go ahead and finish off the clip here.
Excuse me, these are not talking points. These are called Hannity points. I do my own research.
No, but I saw that same list published this morning by the Trump campaign. It's the exact same list. And again, if you want to know what my position is on any issue, I'm happy to talk to you about it.
On those positions, you come off, and this is not an insulting thing. You are historically very left of center, very liberal, and I agree with you. Your party treated you horribly. I think you deserve better.
Okay, so I mean, again, listen, it's very transparent what Sean Hannity is doing here. And this is something that I've been very, praiseworthy of when it comes to Marianne Williamson, is she will go on Sean Hannity's show. She'll go on conservative platforms, but she never fell for the trick, right? The trick is that they want to bring you on, not because they give a single solitary shit about what your beliefs or your policy agenda is. They bring you on because you're running in the Democratic primary and they think they can use you to hurt the leading candidate, Joe Biden. That's the entire purpose of why they had, RFK Jr. on, and why they had Marianne Williamson on, and why they'll have, Cornel West on. It's just to try to use them. And something that Marianne Williamson always did really effectively is she would never fall for that trap. And she would say, yes, I have many disagreements with Joe Biden. Here's what they are. Here's why I'm running against him in the Democratic primary. But I also have very strong disagreements with conservative politics, with the Republican Party's platform and what you stand for, Sean Hannity or whoever the host may be. So it seems like RFK Jr. got really, really comfortable going on all of these conservative outlets and having them basically use like kid gloves against him. And so he was just completely blindsided now that he's launched his independent bid by somebody like Sean Hannity, who's obviously a Trump buttlicker, at the end of the day. And, having him come on and basically just list off literal talking points from the Trump campaign itself. So, I mean, there you go. I think this is, honestly fucking hilarious. It's also funny in the sense that, Sean Hannity is trying to pretend that RFK Jr. is some, like, raging Bernie Sanders kind of, Democrat or liberal or progressive or something. He's not. I mean, I've talked about him before on this channel. He has his, like, anti-big pharma views, but then when you get into the details of, like, okay, what exactly do you want to do? Do you want to nationalize big pharma like I, as a leftist, want to do? No, okay, we don't want to do that. Okay, you're worried about, the fossil fuel industry, as Sean Hannity just pulled out some of those quotes. Okay, what's your solution to that? And then he basically just goes and says that the capitalist free market is going to be the solution to climate change. We need to deregulate this bureaucratic government apparatus and all of that stuff. So I mean, he was never really to the left of Joe Biden on any of the major issues at the end of the day. And so it's not surprising to me that now that he's announced as an independent and could potentially do damage to Donald Trump, that they're all starting to turn against him. And I've literally seen posts from people on Twitter who are absolutely shameless about it, right? Conservative, pundits and likewise, who have just come out and said the quiet part out loud and been like, yeah, before, when he was in the Democratic primary, I was supporting him to hurt Biden. Now that he's not, and now that the polling data shows he could very likely take more away from Trump than Biden in a 2024 election matchup, now I'm going to attack him, and I'm gonna bring up his record of fighting against fossil fuel companies or whatever the case may be. So I mean, honestly, it's very entertaining to watch, and I don't know exactly what RFK Jr. thinks is going to be the outcome of a 2024 independent run. He has basically no chance of winning whatsoever and like actually becoming the next president. And I think it'll be really interesting, especially as time goes on, because if you track the polling data over time, the more that he speaks, the more that he goes out in public and outlines his policy positions, his support within the Democratic coalition falls off of a cliff. And, tracking, recently over the last couple of months before his independent announcement, his support within the Republican coalition was absolutely skyrocketing. And so he definitely has higher favorabilities among conservatives than of, so-called liberals or progressives. And so it'll be interesting as time goes on and on and on. And if he stays in this race, he could very well end up, being a significant difference between, Joe Biden and Donald Trump in some of these key swing states. If RFK Jr., is capable of peeling off 3% or 4% or 5% of some of these Republican voters who are like anti-vax or something like that, and they just don't like Donald Trump, if he can bring some of those people onto his side, then he could very well cost Donald Trump a state like Michigan or a state like Pennsylvania. So that's something that could legitimately be fearful. And so you're seeing all of the conservative media ecosystem and all of these conservative politicians who used to treat him with kid gloves, who used to try to hype him up, just turning 180 degrees on a dime to now try to smear him and now try to attack him. And it's honestly just glorious to watch.
Everyone is saying good politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying